Hello, this is Sophia Cody talking about transphobia once again.
You're never in school, then how do you meet dudes or chicks or, non-specific gender? Everybody's great, whatever you're into.
I like boys.
Me too.
This opportunity for representation, turn joke, rubbed me the wrong way. What's the point of it, if not to introduce a queer character and how the parts of their life that are mundane to them are weird to most everyone else? The joke seems to be, wow, isn't it hard to navigate conversations with those people around? When it could have been a way to deflate cisgender heterosexual people's expectations. The expectation that we're sidelines, afterthoughts, and okay with being a joke without purpose. With that being said, you can joke about queer people. Take it from a tranny, our lives are crazy. But there are many people and groups who don't seem to care about the beauty of our unique differences at all. J.K. Rowling, BBC, Donald Trump, LGB Alliance, and Dave Chappelle. Chappelle has been talking about queer people for a while now, and the only supportive things he has to say are later contradicted. For example, he's apparently against the Southern bathroom bills, but is a trans exclusionary radical feminist, and he fails to realize feminists support trans women. He makes fun of how we've expressed ourselves, but says he respected us, and many of his jokes are simply calling trans women and lesbians manly or gay men literally catty. I rewatched his newest special, The Closer, and it only made me more hurt, as what he said sunk in. He says he's talking about his people, but he's talking about my people too. And there is an intersection. Totally avoiding talking about black trans people, as many have noted before, fails to acknowledge their hardships. He asks if a gay person can be racist, but he doesn't ask if a gay person can experience racism. Many of his jokes are tired. Me and my friends were talking about Mike Pence being gay back when it was relevant. I've heard homophobic marginalized people say they're jealous of us for our so-called recent progress far too many times. Just because we can legally marry does not mean we are liberated. Trans people still have to jump through hoops to get medicated, get surgeries, and change our name and gender marker. Trans men still face erasure regarding pregnancy. Many trans men and people with a uterus and all that don't get treated correctly in terms of gender, which is huge, their entire birthing process. They always get misgendered, which takes an emotional toll, and they face doctors and therapists who aren't properly educated on gender identity and the lives of trans people. And queer history isn't taught in schools. But Chappelle doesn't like to talk about our experiences. He only cares about cis people's perspective. Now, I don't believe all this belongs on Chappelle's shoulders. I'm just disappointed because he's seemingly claiming to be an ally while ignorant. Many non-queers think queer people's struggle is new, but it's as old as time. Specifically, what we're facing now is created with the introduction of white colonialism. The new religions, Christianity for example, is literally more often than not an excuse to be queerphobic and sexist, and always has been. Back when black Americans were enslaved, and white Christians were using the Bible as an excuse to commit those atrocious, still relevant acts, they killed white queers and queers of color alike through legal, sometimes public execution. I'm also going to say, because I feel like I have to, that queer people were present and powerful in native societies and ancient Egypt and Greece. You can't deny we've been here as long as cis-hets, and we are as beautiful, natural, and healthy as cis-hets. So yes, Chappelle, slaves were queer too. He acts like anyone actually gets in trouble for being queerphobic, but he's been rich his entire adult life, and he doesn't understand how many chances homophobes and transphobes get. Time after time, queer people can complain, but nothing will happen. It's rare for us to be treated as protected, especially when these things happen to queers of color, and it happens to them more. When we are protected by powerful non-queers, bigots still get chance after chance. They're accommodated before we are. His examples of rich and powerful cishet men, Kevin Hart and DaBaby, are bad examples even for this airy, hackneyed argument. Both are rich. Nothing can happen to them. They can receive further millions at a slower rate. That's it. Maybe they lose the limelight, but that was a major privilege in the first place. All of this prioritizes cishet people's discomfort, but doesn't touch on queer people's pain. Most of Chappelle's jokes would be fine, but he jokes at our expense exclusively. I don't care if he thinks one of us hypothetically looks like a man. I expect that from cis people. I care when he doesn't follow up that joke with how bricks, trans women who don't pass, face the most hate by strangers in public. If he had watched Disclosure, which hopefully since he's making media about us that harms us, he hasn't, and he's as ignorant as some of us think, he'd have heard Laverne Cox say that when she was transitioning, New Yorkers would spontaneously burst into laughter when they saw her, because cis people don't take us seriously. He, as an artist, especially one who's avoided minstrelsy in the past in his career, should know that trans women are a group often targeted by media. We're called masculine, we're called traps for cishet men, a tradition he's used as a comedic tool again and again in his last few specials. Something I can give him credit for is touching on white privilege. As a white person, it's far less likely for me to be mistreated by police or killed by a partner or beaten by a stranger or even purposefully misgendered than it is a black trans person. He's also very right in saying that I can, at times, jump between being queer and being white. Queers of color, of course, can't do that. So I'm not saying Chappelle doesn't know what it's like to be a minority. Even as a rich and famous marginalized person, you face certain challenges others don't. He felt it necessary to leave behind his hit show because he was being treated as a joke himself. So why is it hard for him to understand that we, similarly, don't want to be nothing but a joke? Finally, it's important to understand that media leads to serious harm when it comes to minorities and women. The signs of the times shift in and out of our favor constantly when it comes to what is and isn't right to say. But the same thing is always true. We don't see justice. 915 people have been shot and killed by police in the last year, according to the Washington Post. This affects black people and Latin people the most. According to VAWnet, nearly half of their trans respondents have been sexually assaulted, more than half when just looking at trans people of color. I say this because many of you don't realize that what we go through is even real. Chappelle doesn't care, you probably don't care, and as a trans person, sometimes it's hard to care about myself. Please consider supporting trans artists too. Ones like Robin Tran, Censored Dialogue, Cat Black, Dua Salah, and Angelica Ross. Watch trans TV like Disclosure, Tangerine, Pose, and Her Story. Thank you. Tell me what you think in the comments, and have a great day.